The Saga of Job, Faith in the Darkness, Part 1. The man who had everything in the eastern land of Uz, where winds sang ancient tales through the valleys and the stars seemed to burn closer to the earth. There lived a man whose name echoed in the heavenly courts and in the hearts of men. Job was not a king crowned with gold, nor a warrior with a bloodied sword. But his wealth was measured in something more precious than metal, in integrity. 7,000 sheep, white as the snows of distant mountains, bleated in his lush pastures, their wool so fine that merchants from Tyre and Sidon traveled for weeks to trade for it. 3,000 camels formed caravans that crossed deserts, bringing spices from Arabia, silks from the east, and ivory from Africa. 500 yoke of oxen plowed the fertile land that produced barley and wheat in abundance, while 500 donkeys carried treasures that filled storehouses and chambers. Servants as numerous as the leaves on the oaks of Bashan worked joyfully, for their master was just and generous. But Job's true wealth lay within the stone walls of his spacious home, where love dwelt in every corner. 7 sons strong and honorable men and 3 daughters women of beauty and grace formed a family circle that was the envy of Uz. They often gathered for feasts, each in their own home, inviting one another to celebrate the life God had given them. And Job, the patriarch, watched over their souls with a care that transcended the paternal. Every morning, before the first golden ray of sun broke the horizon, Job rose from his bed. His steps led him to the place of sacrifice, where the stone altar waited. There, while the dawn still wrapped the land in its blue-gray mantle, he offered burnt offerings, one for each child. The scent of burning meat rose to the heavens, mixed with his prayer. Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. This ritual was not superstition, but the ultimate expression of his reverent fear, recognition that even in abundance, humanity remained fragile, in need of grace. While the smoke of Job's morning sacrifices rose into Uz's tranquil atmosphere, in the inaccessible heights, an event of cosmic consequence unfolded. The sons of God presented themselves before the Eternal, and among them came also Satan, the accuser, whose steps echoed with the sound of unspoken suspicions. "Where have you come from?" asked the Lord, his voice not one of interrogation, but of invitation to the dialogue that has always existed between creator and creature. "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it," replied Satan. "It's eyes. One can speak of eyes for such a being, scanning the shadows and lights of creation, always seeking the crack in the armor of human faith. Have you considered my servant Job?" The Lord continued, and there was a tone of legitimate paternal pride in the words. "There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." Satan paused, a calculated silence. His smile was a curvature without warmth, a movement of lips that did not reach whatever passed for his soul. "Does Job fear God for nothing?" His voice was smooth, insinuating, laden with the seemingly irrefutable logic of self-interest. "Have you not put a hedge around him, and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land." He paused again, allowing the premise to settle in the spaces between words. "But now, stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The silence that followed was not one of hesitation, but of unfathomable depth. The angels present perhaps held their breath if celestial beings breathe. Then the voice of the Eternal echoed through the courts, charged with a mystery no cherub or seraph could completely decipher. "Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." The permission was given. The test, or perhaps the revelation, would begin. On earth, Job did not know his name had been the center of a celestial dialogue. He supervised his lands, resolved disputes among servants with wisdom, counseled his sons, and at night contemplated the stars, marveling at the God who had hung them in the void. His life was a harmonious balance between work and rest, between prosperity and gratitude, between authority and humility, until the day the balance shattered. First came the messenger, a young servant whose face was disfigured by terror. He ran to where Job was examining a new barley field, practically falling at his feet. The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby. He gasped, and the Sabians attacked and carried them off. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." Job placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Be calm, my son. Life is more precious than oxen and donkeys." But before he could fully process the loss, another servant arrived, older, his cloak torn in a sign of mourning. "The fire of God fell from the heavens," he cried, his eyes still reflecting the horror of the flames, "and burned up the sheep and the servants and destroyed them. I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." Job felt a chill run down his spine but remained erect. "The Lord gave the sheep," he whispered to himself, "and the Lord." A third messenger interrupted his thought, riding hard from the north. "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties," he announced, his voice trembling, "and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." 3 blows, 3 catastrophic losses. A lifetime's wealth dissipated in hours. Job looked at his surviving servants' men, marked by trauma, and at the fields that once pulsed with activity, now silent as a tomb. He took a deep breath, preparing words of comfort for his men. It was then that he saw the 4th messenger. This one did not run. He dragged himself. His steps were uneven, as if each movement required superhuman effort. When he came near, Job saw that his eyes were empty, not of terror, but of a pain so deep it transcended expression. "Your sons and daughters," the man's voice was a thread of sound, "were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house." Job felt his heart quicken. Terrible premonition tightened his chest. A mighty wind swept in from the desert. The messenger continued, each word uttered as if torn from his soul, and struck the 4 corners of the house. "It collapsed on the young people, and they are dead." He paused, and the silence that followed was more eloquent than any scream. "I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." Job's world collapsed. Not just physically, riches could be rebuilt, but at its very core, his sons, his daughters. The children he had blessed each morning, for whom he had offered sacrifices, whose faces were the light of his days, dead, all of them. He fell to his knees. The hands that had once blessed now rose in a primordial gesture of mourning. He seized his cloak, the fine woolen cloak his daughters had woven for him, and tore it from top to bottom. The sound of the rending fabric echoed like the groan of a broken heart. Then, with mechanical movements, he took a knife and shaved his head. The graying hair that was his crown of dignity fell to the dusty ground, mixing with the ashes he himself threw over his head. Finally, he fell face down to the ground. The dust that had once produced wealth now entered his mouth, mixing with his tears. His servants watched, fearing a collapse, a curse, a revolt against the heavens that had allowed such tragedy. His eyes, red from weeping, fixed on a distant point on the horizon. When he spoke, his voice was not a scream, but a solemn declaration, laden with a faith forged not in prosperity, but in something deeper. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart." He paused, breathing deeply. The air that entered his lungs was the same his children had breathed for the last time. "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away." Another pause. The servants leaned forward, waiting for the logical conclusion, an accusation, a complaint, a doubt. Instead, came words that would echo through the centuries, across cultures and beliefs, becoming an eternal landmark in the history of human faith. "May the name of the Lord be praised." In that prostration, in that tearing of clothes, in that silent homage to the dead, Scripture records simply, "In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing." The first round had ended. Job's faith had remained firm. But in the heavenly wings, the accuser was not satisfied. The test, he would soon argue, had not been deep enough. True integrity, he would suggest, is only revealed when the flesh itself is touched. Meanwhile, in Uz, a man sat among the ashes of his former life, his soul a battlefield between the deepest pain humanity can know and a faith that refused to die. The sun set that day, taking with it not only the light, but an entire world. The night that followed was the longest of Job's life, but it would not be the last. End of part 1. May God bless you. Thank you for getting this far. Subscribe to the channel and receive more videos like this.